Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our big stories now. And 7 years down the road, 3 years into the second term of President Akufo-Addo, he's had his ministers helming affairs for quite a while. In recent days, we've heard about a planned reshuffle of some of the ministers, and lots of names have been thrown into the fray with switcheroos here and there. But what exactly is going to happen? We anticipate ahead of these dynamics. And we want to hear from you today, even as we interact with our guests, in terms of what your expectations would be if there were any such reshuffle. Which minister or which set of ministers has performed exceedingly well? How about those who have not exactly met your expectations that you feel should be set aside altogether? Which ones have performed but need to be moved elsewhere? Well, joining us for a discussion on those, we have our guests. Joining us for now, Martin Kpebu. He is a lawyer and a man who shares his thoughts on myriad matters. Martin, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Akufo. Morning.
All right. It's good to have you join the conversation. So to start off, I'd like to find out from you, looking at the performances, basically, of the ministers of Akufo-Addo, what would you make of them? But even before you hazard a guess or a reply for me, I'd also like to let you know that we've put this out there on social media, Joy News on Facebook. If you have any comments, you can pipe them through Facebook. That is Joy News on Facebook. And shortly, we'd be right here in the studio looking at some of the responses you have. But back to you, Mr. Kpebu. Looking at the set of ministers in this second term of Akufo-Addo, if you have had to move around, including the trades minister, who now has gone independent. But for those who have stayed, what do you make of their performances?
Okay, Mr. Kpebu, I think the measure, I have a number of measures I'll use. First of all, if you analyze from the perspective of corruption, and that's where we should be starting, because when you have a government that is stealing from citizens, then that's no government. So to the extent that Akufo-Addo and his government have not been able to fight corruption, that means all of them, they've all performed below par.
Hello, Mr. Kpebu. Mr. Kpebu, can you hear me? Well, it appears we've lost the connection to Martin Kpebu. We'll try to get him back and find out what more he had to say. But he was making an analogy there that to the extent that all these ministers have been in this administration with all the corrupt activities, then all of them have failed. Mr. Kpebu, we lost you briefly. You were making a point about all the ministers having failed. Can you go back to that?
Yes. Yes. So, Mr. Akufo, my point is that once they, as gatekeepers, are not able to take care of our resources, and so our corruption perception index has tanked, and it's been at 43 for 4 years, and compared to previous administration, it shows that we've lost the battle. It means all of them must go. It means that all of them are in charge of serious thievery. Yes, we are allowed to make that inference. Because why is it that the corruption perception index, we are not inching up? We are not even getting to the 48 JM once had. Why is that we are not getting the 47 he once had? At Amil's had 45 at a point. Why are we not getting that? So once we use corruption as an index, it means the whole band of them, Akufo-Addo plus all of his ministers, they failed. They are superintending stealing. So it doesn't matter that you see roads. And listen, we shouldn't give opportunity for people to just come and say, oh, they've built this number of roads, this number of hospitals. At what cost? At what cost? That is the problem. So much leakage. So once you look at it from that index, that their fiduciary role of protecting the public purse has failed, it means all of them collectively have failed. It doesn't matter that one minister can come and say, look, he hasn't taken any bribe from a contractor, etc. No. From the way our system works, that minister would know another minister who takes bribes. has that minister reported the one taking bribes? That minister will know his chief director or other subordinate who is taking bribes from the contractors, and these contractors complain all the time. You remember they even complained to Professor Stephen Adair, and Adair came and said it on air. But I know our contractors, the moment you ask them to come out publicly to justify, then they don't want to do so because they are scared of blacklisting. But let's quickly remind the contractors that in our past, contractors used to go before committees and spill all the beans. So if our contractors have not read the Olenu Commission report, they should read it. They should get their lawyers to summarize for them. The Olenu Commission report is the one that dealt with the import licenses, what Katie Hammer was trying to introduce recently, and for which reason the parliamentarians and everybody kicked against. That it bred corruption those days. So coming back, we're just making the point that let's look at the output. Once we are not doing well on corruption, everybody is failed. Don't come and tell me that my ministry has built so and so roads, has built so and so hospital, agenda 111, etc. Because the plain truth is that before these people can steal, they have to steal through procurement. They have to steal through the projects. So that's the analysis. And so once the outcome shows that we are losing so much money, that is it. Then another subset of it.
Martin Kpebu, just 2 quick points. One, are you saying that all the members of this administration, you make a pretty blanket statement. You're saying that, and let me even start from the metrics on the CPI, the Corruption Perceptions Index. I believe it's 48 at a point and 46. I don't know whether there's a 47 in there or a 45, like you mentioned, but I do recall 48 and 46. Yeah, I do recall 48 and 46. Maybe a 45, but I don't know about a 47. We could always check. I mean, I could always check on that. But I was just saying.
Yeah, JM got 48. Atame's got 45.
Okay, right. It's the 47 that I'm saying. I don't know whether there was a 47. I know there definitely was a 48 and a 46 somewhere. But I'm saying that 2 quick points. One, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Martin?
It was 47. It's like.
Okay, right. We can play around the numbers. I didn't recall a 47, but that's fine. By what you're saying, you're suggesting that all the ministers. I think Mr. Kpebu is struggling to hear me. Mr. Kpebu, can you hear me?
Yes, it's better now.
All right.
Yes.
I am saying we can go past the numbers. It's not really a point I'm trying to make. I was just trying to find out because I don't recall a 47 in there. I recall 48, 46, and maybe a 45. But I am saying that by what you're saying, isn't it a blanket statement to make? Because then you are suggesting that all of these ministers are thieves, your words, simply because they've been in a corrupt administration, as you paint it. Is that a fair analysis to make and to say that none of them can be extricated from this, that they are all involved in it? Is it a fair assessment to make?
Absolutely, Mr. Akaku. Absolutely. And then, though you said we should just go past the numbers, I've opened the numbers, so let's briefly go through. In 2012, we had 45.
Hello? All right, we appear to have lost Martin Kpebu one more time. Martin, we lost you briefly. You're back, so go ahead.
Okay. So, Mr. Akapo, the reason we are looking at a collective, you see, we are analyzing the government. So, for those who want, the question is that, what did they do about it? Mr. Akapo, remember these great philosophers, different ones, have all said it in various forms, that evil triumphs when good people do nothing about it. Evil triumphs when good people do nothing about it. So the yardstick I'm using to measure those who want to claim that they are not part of the thievery, they are not part of the corruption, is that what have they done about it? What have they done about it? Let's go back quickly. We can mention Minister for Foreign Affairs, Shelley Ayokobochi. She went to the passport office and complained about corruption there, right? And sent some of the immigration workers away. Can we see what came out of it? Yeah, she complained that they are the ones who are corrupt, yet ministers are blamed. Yeah, she took a little step. How has she finished it? So when she finishes that process, then maybe I can count her out. Go to Amoakwata, number 2. Amoakwata also complained that there was corruption in the ministry. He just complained. I understand there was one that he took the person through the disciplinary process, but they don't want to even give us details. So if you've taken somebody through the disciplinary process and you can't give details, how can we trust? We need to see whether there was due process. So these are 2 ministers I know so far, I can remember from my mind, came to complain about corruption. But as I've said, they haven't seen through the complaints because talk is cheap. Everybody can come and sit down and complain. But if you just complain and you haven't taken positive steps towards eradicating it or towards holding those persons accountable, I can't give marks for it. So I am looking for the evidence. What have those ministers done? Are there any other ministers you recall? Amewu also said the PDS deal was what? The people involved were crooks, something like that. He said, yes, it was filled with corruption, the PDS deal. But after saying that, what else did he do? Mr. Akaku, are you with me?
I am with you. Hello, Martin. I can hear you. I am with you.
So Amewu also complained about PDS deal. Okay, good. So Amewu also just complained about corruption, and that was it. What steps did he take? I've heard so many other cases of corruption where you hear ministers mumbling against the corruption. But what positive steps are they taking? What positive steps? Let's go to Baumia. Baumia says.
So Martin, just to situate the conversation, Mr. Kpebu, I'm just analyzing it from this angle, though. So are you saying, and mind you, I didn't necessarily focus on corruption. I wanted you to give me just a brief assessment of which ministers you felt had performed, which ministers you felt had not performed. Just a bite size, because I'm moving on to the next guest before I come to you. But are you saying that there's nothing good, no personality who has done anything good in this administration? Is that your suggestion?
Absolutely, Mr. Akaku. Absolutely. I mean it. 1,000 times you ask me this, that's the same answer I'm going to give you. Because as I said, I'm measuring output. I'm not measuring likability, mass appeal. Yes, some ministers have mass appeal. But you're asking me a hard question. And I'm also giving a hard answer. I'm not talking about likability or the mass appeal. What I'm looking at is that we are leaking seriously. The economy has tanked. Look, I've just remembered SML, finance minister, superintending what? The fleecing of the ordinary Ghanaian, leaking our resources. How am I going to say such people have done well? An economy that they drove into the ditch. How am I going to give anybody any positive marks, a pass mark? So the whole bunch of them, plus Akufo-Addo, chief, incompetent in chief, all of them, they failed. We are measuring outcomes, not measuring just buildings that have sprung up, roads that have sprung up. No, what have gone into those roads? What have gone into the buildings? What are the outcomes? Why is it that you hear Harriet Thompson, the UK High Commissioner, saying that if all the revenue we make were going into development, Ghana would be a far richer country than now? Mr. Akaku, did you hear Harriet Thompson say that? The UK High Commissioner?
Yet.
Yes. So that is the point. You say it. So let's look at, we are measuring outcomes. Let's not do anything like any emotions. We are just dealing with the cold facts. Government that has been horrible.
Okay.
Government that
let me
constitutional development.
Let me bring in, hold for me, Martin. It is clear what your positioning is on this matter. Let me bring in Paul Grave-Boakye-Dankwa. He's government spokesperson on governance and security. Paul Grave, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the AM show. What do you make of President Akufo-Addo's ministers now that, to all intents and purposes, a reshuffle is in the offing? Is a reshuffle even necessary? Some would say it is crucial. Is it necessary for you? And if so, which ministries do you feel need some reshuffling? And the reshuffling isn't necessarily that people have not performed, but that by any metrics, in any system that works, you would want to move people around to ensure that people don't become too comfortable in a certain area and then start underperforming. What is your reaction to that?
Benjamin, a very good morning to you and a very good morning to your viewers. And to state that I'm concerned about the trajectory within which lawyer Kpebu is making his assertions. I'm concerned because I'm wondering on what authority he is making assertions of failed ministers and mentioning corruption. But let me just say succinctly. The government of President Akufo-Addo has various ministers at various posts and also has various CEOs at agencies of ministries. The ministers and the CEOs are government appointees who implement the government policies at the various ministries and the various agencies. Now, it's important is that at every stage, whenever the president desires to make a change on leadership, he does that on the premise of how he feels things are going. It will be very difficult for me to isolate Ministry A and leave Ministry B, but to be able to state that whatever that the president does in terms of his decision as it relates to a reshuffle, is best in making that decision and he is best in deciding that Minister A moves from Ministry A to Ministry B based on how he wants things done on a larger value scale. I would say is that the government of President Akufo-Addo.
Hello, Paul Grave. Paul Grave, can you hear me? Let's do this one more time. I know the network can be a bit patchy, but we're going to try to get Paul Grave back. Paul Grave, can you hear me now? It appears the network issue hasn't been resolved yet. He disagrees with the statements being made by Martin Kpebu in respect of President Akufo-Addo's ministers in this third year of the second term. Let me also bring into the conversation Dr. Michael Ayamga. He's a development economist, University for Development Studies. Dr. Ayamga, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me.
All right, straight to the point. We've had a conversation. Martin Kpebu has taken an entrenched position, saying that on the back of corruption and other issues, all the ministers of President Akufo-Addo have underperformed. I just spoke to Paul Grave-Boakye-Dankwa, who disagrees, and he was going on to make some points, but we've lost him. I'd like to find out from you, if you were to assess, first as a group, the ministers who have been in this tenure for President Akufo-Addo. Only a few have, like Alan Tremartin, who decided to go independent, contest in the MPP and go independent, have stepped aside. So as a group, how would you assess them? And then individually, if you had to take them apart, who would be your brightest star and who would be your least bright star?
Ben, this is a very difficult question. Because, you see, it's like asking somebody to select the best player in the Black Stars.
It's like asking someone to do what? Select the best player in the Black Stars.
Yes. Because the purpose for which the team is put in place is to play football, to win matches, advance in competition, win trophies, and maybe make Ghanaians happy. So on this call, you may have a kudus in there, but the very purpose for which the team is put together has not been fulfilled. So this so-called League of Ministers is cosmetic, and a ranking in just for rankings. I do not think that to say this is the best minister, this is the next best minister, and this is the last, you Ghanaians or that Ghanaians, anything. I will say for certain that if it was possible, you will have to reshuffle everybody, remove everybody, right from the Jubilee House down to the clerk, and because if your interest is in the final output, the deliverables, the take home, the bread and butter issues, the economy, the state of our institutions, everything you look at is undesirable. So how then do you say the architect of this outcome, one is better than the other? So it is a very, very difficult thing to do. But yet, even in some of the West schools, that in schools that everybody doesn't pass. You know, we have something like that in Ghana here, where everybody in the school fails. Yes, there's somebody who still emerges first. So if you want me to do that, I'm fine. I can say A or B. But to say that this is a minister who has delivered what the people expect him or her to deliver, you will need a very strong lens to go through this cabinet and find one. I'm not missing words. I'm not garnishing it. I'm talking from reality, my feeling, gauging the mood of Ghanaians, and comparing us to what we used to know as people of Ghana. This is a disastrous cabinet that has led Ghana into a ditch and brought our economy crumbling.
So are you suggesting that there is no bright spot in this administration? Is that what you're saying? I mean, even when things are at their worst, there would be a bright spot somewhere. You're saying that there's none you can find, none you can commend?
As I just said, I spoke in context using the season, the mood of the season to describe, and that's why I said it's like trying to select the best player in the current Black Stars team. Yes, they are good players there. They have kudu. You could say he's one of the future. If something good comes, if you have a better government in the future, you could rely on such a fellow to be a point of inspiration. But the rest have more or less taken seriously. To say, okay, this is a reshuffle, bring in this and take out this. It's like telling the coach to take out Inaki Williams and bring in Bakari. So that is the summary of it. The state of Ghana is the state of our black stars. They are just mirror images of each other. And whether you like it or not, yes, there are good players there. There are some positives that you may take on. But in totality, they are a disaster. And that is what this government is. You don't have to mince words. I don't see the reason why you can get up. You have an economy that has just turned the corner, taken off, stabilized, almost gone into autopilot. They give it to you, you bring it down. Look at our institutions. Today, none of them is working. We don't advertise before we employ. You sit down there and someone selling Kobe at Makwala, all of a sudden, it's in the security forces. And you have people writing exams, failing, and turning up with results. So everything that you expect to go on well is not. And you cannot say that the architects, as I've said, the main drivers of such an outcome deserve to be ranked some praise and some maligned. They fail as a team and they fail individually. If you want us to maybe do it this way, let me cast the question. Who do you think contributed the most to this mess? Then we can start talking about that. That is the right question to pose to me. That we are in a very chaotic situation, deplorable, hopeless situation. These are the people that got us here. But who do you think is the worst culprit? Then we have a question. Then we can begin to do that one. But as it stands now, no. Then I won't my situation by trying to rank people in the year. No.
All right. Hold for me. Let me bring in Paul Grave. Watch it down, Kwa. Paul Grave, it doesn't appear Dr. Ayamga and Mr. Kpebu feel that there's any bright spot in this administration as far as ministers are concerned. But coming back to you, you were making a point. Is this even necessary now? It's the 4th year of the 2nd term. What difference will a reshuffle make at this point?
Benjamin, I think that both Martin and my other colleagues on the panel are being very dishonest.
They are being very dishonest.
Very dishonest with their assertions on the performance of government.
But
no, Benjamin,
no. I'll let you go. But some of the wording, at least I have tried to control the wording. If you say they are dishonest, should we take your word as honest?
Martin has used very insensitive words this morning.
And yes, I have chastised him on some of them.
If he's being dishonest, I need to be able to say that he's been dishonest. Martin has been extremely dishonest with his assertions. And Benjamin, it's important that when we are having a conversation on national discourse, honesty is key, regardless of your political colorization. It's important. It is important that we assess the performance of government. We assess the shortfalls of government. But it is sad to see that you make a blanket statement that the government has been abysmal, that the government has not performed. Then where are we? It's important. So when I come, I need to be able to set a record straight that the comments that they have made is extremely dishonest of the realities on the ground. Think of it, you are assessing ministers. You are assessing the government of President Akufo-Addo. You are assessing from the first term and assessing from the second term, which is the continuation. You are assessing the performance of ministers. You are assessing policies that have been implemented by this government. There are policies that have been implemented by this government that was not in existence in the erstwhile government. You cannot look at these two and say that the government has not performed. That is being dishonest. Now, we have heard that there is an imminent reshuffle. You are asking the question if the reshuffle is necessary. Benjamin, every government and every leader holds the right on when to make a change of their ministers, ministries, agencies, and departments. It is on the value chain of what the leader is seeing and what the leader wants to be done. Of course, President Akufo-Addo is in the final lap of his governance. If the president wants to cement his legacy, he needs to make changes, which is what we are hearing that he's going to do. He needs to complete projects he's not completed and begin to wrap up. So a new government would come in. And we propose that that new government is going to be the New Patriotic Party under the leadership of Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party.
The same person who is vice president, who has been in this administration throughout, the same person your other colleagues are chastising, he's going to make the difference?
Exactly, because you see, anyone who says that Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been part of a mess does not understand the entire governance structure. And I do not accept and admit that this government has been a mess. This government and the government of President Akufo-Addo has performed more and better than the erstwhile government. And even Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, as Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, has initiated policy statements more than any sitting Vice President in this fourth republic. And Benjamin, you know the truth. Martin knows the truth.
You speak the truth for yourself. Palgrave, speak the truth for yourself. Don't rope me in. Speak the truth for yourself, as you know it.
Well, you are a journalist, so you know the truth. You are a journalist, you know the truth. You know the objective truth. Make a comparison and an honest assessment. Make an honest assessment. Martin should make an honest assessment of the vice presidency nature of John Dramani Mahama and compare that with Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and tell me who stands tall. Tell me whose water will not sink. Compare them. Tell me the policy directives that Dramani Mahama brought as sitting vice president and compare that. Really,
I think this conversation about vice president versus vice president, which has come to the fore now, is only because there must be some justification so that someone also becomes president and then we can square off, right?
That is not the issue.
If it weren't, I mean,
John Dramani Mahama has been president. The Ghanaian people
throughout
Palgrave, the opportunity that was given unto him.
Palgrave, we can either have a conversation or we can have a monologue. Which one would you like us to have?
I think it's important we have a conversation. If you allow me to express my view.
Thank you. But just as I interject the others, I will have to interject you as well. I'm just saying that must it be throughout from Vice President Akka all the way through Aliu Mahama to the others. Vice presidents haven't been looked at in a certain light. All of a sudden, it's being considered because of what? I want you to answer that before you move on.
It is because we have an innovative, out of the ordinary thinking vice president that we have had in this Fourth Republic, which is why we are having this conversation. We have a vice president who has contributed significantly to policy directives from the executive to the president. So compare from Akka, tell us directives that Akka brought when Jerry John Rawlings was president. Tell us directives that Aliu Mahama brought when John Ajikun Kufuor was president. That is significant enough. Tell us directives that Ivan Satamil brought when he was vice president to Jerry John Rawlings.
So all of them, none of them did anything, right?
When he was vice president to Satamil. So
Palgrave.
It's really about the catalytic effect.
So none of them did anything. It's Dr. Bawumia who came and did something,
None
right?
of them did anything significant. The key word is significant. None of them introduced policies that is out of the ordinary, wiser than the 32 significant policies that Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has presented.
All right, hold for me.
He's ensured that there's paperless force. He's ensured that we can get better debt link onto the digital platform. It ensures that every single child today that is born will have a unique identifiable number. It ensures that every single child who is in senior high school has a laptop. It ensures that the number of things that Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has ensured. Gold for oil, gold reserve. We have had gold in this country all throughout the years. We need to be able to be objective in our analysis and praise where we need to praise and condemn where we need to condemn. But if you condemn everything, you're not being objective.
All right. Do hold for me. We'll be going to the touch screen to find out what some people have to say. Of course, if it's good, it is Dr. Bawumia. If it is not, sometimes it's a different story altogether. But let's find out what some of you have had to say in respect of this question about a reshuffle and everything in between. Sweetie, so you are right by the board. What exactly was the question we posed and what have been the reactions so far?
Right. So this morning we asked you across our social media platforms that who has been your best performing minister under President Akufo-Addo's second term. And on Facebook, this is where we start. We have some pictures of the ministers there. Vincent Confidence Abochi says there is no best minister. Akaribo is also saying that there is no best performing ministers among them. They are all zero. Let's go down now and say Samuel Ayamga is saying, in your view or opinion, as a media house or outlet vested with the power to monitor, and I can see that.
All right, so we'll try to rectify that and we'll get back to the board to find out what other messages you have. We have a plethora of those messages. I see some more messages, Sweetie.
Yeah, so Samuel Ayamga is saying that in your view or opinion, as a media house or outlet vested with the power to monitor and ask reasonable questions, which ministry is among them that you can say there is a great improvement and what? Well, we're asking you the question, so you tell us who you think is the best or worst performing minister. Gogo Ghana is also saying the second term best performing minister, in my candid and honest opinion, is Honorable Howard Kumsin. I wonder why that is. Someone is also saying tourism minister. Philip Johnson says their performance reflects that of the entire government. What is the performance of Nana Akufo-Addo? God will punish. This is DJ saying God will punish all of them for Ghanaians. Well, I'm sure most people share your sentiments because the country is hard. Well, these are what we have so far. Oti Ajagba is saying a minister for Nana Akufo-Addo's second term. Yes, a second term. What do you think? Tell us what you think. With abysmal performance of Akufo-Addo, and you are talking about best performing minister, it appears nobody is actually impressed with any of our ministers so far, per what we are seeing here on social media. Robert Bukari is saying none, because the president is acting in their capacity. Few examples are foreign ministry. President does all the traveling and all the meetings with the delegates, all the ministry president is there for them. Ask any street guys, and none of the ministers are known apart from the president. Well, the president is basically saying that the president is doing all the job on behalf of the ministers, and so we don't know these ministers. We don't see them at the forefront of the ministerial activities that we are supposed to be experiencing them. Villa is also saying Senior Minister Osafo Mafu. Right, but we also asked another question about should there be a reshuffle, because we are sensing that there's a reshuffle that is imminent. Maybe I'll come back to you with that later, Benjamin.
All right.
But so far, it doesn't appear that our audience are impressed by any of the ministers. Yeah.
Well, let's see whether we can get any others who are impressed by the performances. And you can single out any minister that you feel has performed, lived up to expectation from where you sit or where you're watching us this morning. But let me quickly, is there something you'd like to come through with?
Yes, yes. So we asked for best performing minister. Now we're asking who's been your worst performing minister under President Akufo-Addo's second term. And what did you say when we asked you this morning this question? Let's begin with Zach Young, or Charles Ayebo Zach Young. Of all the ministers, all of the ministers, including himself, even including he himself is the worst president ever in the country, sports minister, the sports minister, every one of them, including the president himself. So I think it's just the same view across board. Who's the worst performing minister? They're saying all. Who's the best performing? They're saying none. Kobe Disma, you're saying finance minister. We've had series of talks about the finance minister and how he should be, moved. It's interesting, Benjamin. I'm wondering if the reshuffle actually happens, whether the finance minister will go or will stay. Let's look forward to that.
I don't know whether that is even on the table. Looking at the way things have gone, I don't think that is on the table. It's
been a while since Ghanaians started talking about or requesting, even Parliament to move for the vote of censure.
Exactly.
For the finance minister to move. As to why he's still there, question for the gods. Kojo Boahin is saying Matthew Opoku Prempe Opoku. I see. Interesting. They are all passengers. Well, they are all passengers, not citizens, like the president told us. Well, that is it on our social media, on Facebook this morning. Over to you, Benjamin.
Well, that is the tale of the tape. Your response is best performing, worst performing, and anything in between. At least I hear someone who mentioned Mavis Howard Kumsin. That's an interesting pick, interesting choice. But let me come back to my guests. I believe Martin is still with me. Are you still with me, Martin?
Yes, it's Akako. I'm here.
Right. So hold your horses. Hold your horses, Martin. Hold your horses. So the point is, I was just saying, hold it for me. The point is, we've posed the questions about the best performing and the worst performing. You have made your pitch clear in terms of the fact that you feel none of them is worthy of your time because they've all fallen to corruption and everything in between. But even in the worst of anything, sometimes you want to bring about change. What do you feel about this reshuffle? Is it needed? Do you have any expectations of a future reshuffle under this administration?
Much, because, you see, once President Akufo-Addo ignored our calls for a reshuffle years ago at the beginning of the second term, and he just ignored us, it's like he's just using all the executive power alone and Article 58 of the Constitution. It doesn't see that under the preamble and also Article 1, they say sovereignty resides in the people. And so when people talk, public opinion is something that he needs to gauge and use in governance. We just have to leave him, because right now, he's already caused the damage. It's too little, too late. He has caused the damage. There isn't much that any minister can do in the next 6-7 months. You know, the elections are basically at foot now. So really, there isn't much. Akufo-Addo has just demonstrated that he lacks the requisite knowledge and competence for governance. So he's run us aground for 8 years. We've lost the opportunity to strengthen our constitution. You see how we're going to do the district assembly elections on non-partisan basis. When he lost the public debate, then he pulled it, etc. So this is a president who has no regard for the people. He just sees executive power as power to aggrandize himself and to make his family rich, he and his ministers. So it's already caused us too much harm. I don't know what 6 months.
But Mr. Kpebu, we say better late than never. You have called time and again for a reshuffle. He's doing it now, assuming that actually happens. And you're saying that if it happens now, it is too little, too late, so it will mean nothing. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So here, too little, too late triumphs over better late than none. So too little, too late is triumphing. And you know, that's how you do. When you're doing interpretation, sometimes looking at the context, you would have to necessarily give greater weight to certain principles than others. So it's the context that determines. He had 8 years. He ignored us the first 4 years, just minor. The next 4 years, that's this current one, for 3 years, the same thing, except those who had to necessarily go. The Adjoa Safo case, where he had to bring in Baumia's sister, Hadia Zuera, as gender minister, and then Katie Hammond taking over from Alan Kojo Chremantin, right? Yeah, so Mr. Akapo, he's already spoiled everything. He's destroyed it. I don't know what 6 months can do. These ministers were not at the helm, those coming, at the time the budget was being drawn. So they didn't have any opportunity to do their own innovative and original policy contribution. So the policies and everything have already been done. So Mr. Akapo, this is the pay for the submission, that the budget was drawn, the budget and the economic policy was drawn without these incoming ministers. So they had no hand in it. And so right now, everything has been put in. It doesn't look like they would have the gravitas to change much policy in the mid-year review. It doesn't look like so, because what we are looking at is a trajectory of this government for the past 7 years. So these incoming ministers are not in a position to make much of a change. No. So let's say, let me give you concrete examples. An incoming local government minister, can he get President Akufo-Addo to make us go to elect MMDCs on non-partisan lines? And that is crucial for our development. That development at the district level should not have politicians in charge. I mean, partisan politicians, NDC, MPP, CPP, etc. No, we want it to be non-political, so that as Kpebu, I can go to the mayor, tell him certain things, and because he, as a mayor, is not politically aligned, he's more likely to receive it than a current situation where it's MPP. So he has to toe party lines. So, Mr. Akapo, you see the example. An incoming local government minister cannot secure me election of MMDCs on non-partisan lines. So such a minister, when he comes, is not going to do much for me. an incoming local government minister cannot accelerate decentralization within the next 6 months. We've shown that our decentralization hasn't gone on that well. Within the next 6-7 months, that minister cannot do FOCO, like we say locally. So you see that why I say it's not much. If the minister were to come, let's say about 3 years ago, a fresh minister, or 2 years ago, then we could have called upon him that he should push Akufo-Addo to get us election of MMDCs on non-partisan lines. But right now, it's late. It's late. Such a thing cannot be done. Let's go to the finance ministry, if you would like another example. So in the finance ministry now, let's look at the things that we want. We didn't want such Agenda 111, big colossal building of 111 hospitals simultaneously. No, we didn't need that. Now, a new finance minister is not in a position to go and reverse Agenda 111. He cannot. It's too late. All the buildings are already at various stages. So the more you even delay, then the more we'll get cost overruns. So such a minister cannot do much. Number two, an incoming finance minister cannot do much to reverse the SML rot, the SML contract, where Finance Minister Ofori-Atta asked for it to even be extended to the upstream petroleum sector. So SML has made so much money over the years. An incoming finance minister doesn't look like he is in a position to prosecute this SML. He doesn't have what it takes. He's not going to be able to walk to the OSC and say he supported.
So Mr. Kpebu, if I get the thrust of what you're saying. So looking at all these metrics from your end, it's a no. And at this point, it is too little, too late to make any impact. I'll come back to you for your final comments, but let me go on to Dr. Ayamga. I'd like to do this just to streamline the exercise a bit better as we conclude, right? There's the finance minister. I mean, both you and Martin Kpebu have expressed dissatisfaction, grave dissatisfaction with the performance of the ministers. But let's take them apart bit by bit and find out what scores, for example, you would give Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. There's Communications Minister Ursula Owusu-Ekufo. There's Health. There's a Minister. Energy, NAPO. Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. There's Trade. Now we have KT Hammond. There's Agric, Brian Champong. There's Roads and Highways. I mean, Kwesi Amakwata. All of these people are there. If I asked you to rate any of these, what would be your ratings or your scores on a scale of 1 to 10? Dr. Ayamga.
Thank you, Ben. I'm sure you, because I'm a teacher, you have given me this task, and I'll probably let you have a feel of how rigorous I mark. Let me start with the Transportation Minister. You just have to pass with the Accra to Mexico, and you will know that he gets an F, you even probably.
So you are talking of Roads and Highways, right?
Yes. I think you just need to go through the Accra to Mexico. You don't need to come up north here, and you know that you get an F+, it should be ratificated. The Finance Minister topped the league of abysmal ministers in the history of this country. Since I started following finance ministers right from the days of Kpebu all the way to Kobna before, he comes across as one of the most powerful but incompetent ministers. He took an economy that was growing to one that is entered recession for two continuous years.
In the first few years of the MPP, the economy grew, did it not?
Well, they took an economy that was growing at 3.7%. So if we talk about
they increased that.
In 2016, when they inherited the economy, it was growing. They inherited an import cover almost 4 months. They inherited an exchange rate that was growing about 3.8 to the US dollar. So everything you want to look at, the finance minister has reversed this country. They inherited a debt that was about 10 billion. They have 100 billion. They are taking it to 10 billion. They are taking it to over 50 billion and so on. So the numbers don't add up. Pragmatic in the country. You look at businesses, they are falling up. when they took over, Ghana was seen as the shining light of Africa, to the extent that the president could go around the world telling them that Ghana is beyond aid. He saw the fundamentals, the structure that had been put in place, and it felt like Ghana could do without aid. Today, the world thinks that Ghana is beyond help, so they don't even want to lend to us because they think if you lend to us, we waste it. That is the scorecard of the finance minister. I think he's an F due for ratification. He should have gone long ago. You look at the petroleum ministry, and you need to look at petroleum prices, go for oil deals that is as opaque as possible. We are still dealing with petroleum prices between 11 and 12 cents for a liter of petrol. And you are looking at almost food prices rising on the back of petroleum. Meanwhile, we produce and export petroleum products. You can't want me to pass such a fellow due for ratification. I've told you, I don't want to sound...
okay, so basically, if I get where you're going to give all of them Fs. You've given the roads minister an F+, finance minister an F.
I'm not going to give everybody F. I'm not going to give everybody F. I think...
okay, so let me frame it this way. Let me frame it this way, Dr. Yamda.
I'll give Honorable Ambrose Derry a D. Because
you give Ambrose Derry a what? A B or a D?
A D.
Okay.
If you want me to go to SHS rating, let's call it a D7. He looks more calm, maybe a point of some confidence if you look at the demeanor and the posturing of all the other ministers. But he's still part of a system that has failed, and that is what has worked against him. But I think that at the personal level, we are inferior. At least we are not like our neighbors, and we have been able to at least keep some form of security in the country. There's some stability, but some flashes here and there. But for the behavior of police and others in conflict and other things,
right.
Probably fast. But yes, beyond that, I don't think that it is the rest of the ministers. Any means are non-applicable. They have not written the exam well.
Okay.
Enough.
All right. Dr. Yamda.
I wanted to say something. You see,
I'll let you say that. I'll let you say that in your final comments. I'll let you say that in your final comments, and then we can wrap. Let me bring in Paul Grave Wachidankwa. Paul Grave, are you still with me?
Benjamin.
Hello, Paul Grave.
Yes, Benjamin, I can hear you.
Right. It doesn't appear our two other guests are at idem as far as you are concerned in your take. But I'd like to find out from you, assessing these ministers and the grades they are giving them, do you feel it is fair? And what do you think should be the way going forward as far as a reshuffle is concerned?
From a governance angle, it's really unfair for these two persons to rate in this manner. I mean, I know Martin is a lawyer. I don't know whether he specializes in governance and ministerial work. I'm not too sure of Professor's background as well. But, I mean, it's important that when you are assessing ministers, okay, you assess on the value chain. And they are liking skills. I mean, anyone who's gone through academic studies to a highest level will know that they are liking skills. You rate 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. So you rate on performance, you rate on character, you rate on policy, you rate on issues of budgetary allocations, you rate on leadership changes, you rate on charismatism, you rate on what a person has been able to add on in terms of value chain. And so really, when the President Akufo-Addo does a reshuffle, and Martin states that there's nothing that can be done in terms of what the people are going to add, and so you should leave the other people there, then he doesn't understand what the entire governance structure is, because leaders vary from person to person. And so policies might not directly change, but there will be an impact on that. And so if you have a minister who comes and is able to convince cabinet that having reviewed this policy, it is important that we look at this in this angle, I think that cabinet can make a policy edit on issues that have been done. So I want the conversations to be done on an entire value chain and an objective manner. I would not want to rate a minister on an A or a B or a C or a D. I would rate ministers on a value chain, on a liking scale of what used to be there what they have added on, the significant contributions they have made, and how that has become a civic responsibility, and how that will stay in the particular ministry post the ministry's exit or the minister's exit from that particular role. I would wish the president the best in his decision of a reshuffle. I would wish that the people that the president brings on board would contribute significantly to the last few months that the president has had in cementing his legacy and ensuring that the new Patriotic Party, which is the party of choice for the Ghanaian people, would win the 2024 general election.
Well, thank you, Paul Grave, for adding those comments. Dr. Ayamga, you said you had a brief bit. I'll give you, together with Martin, a minute each. Unless Paul Grave, there's anything else you want to add. I want to be fair to everybody.
Well, once they go the last round, I'll do my last bit.
I think you should do that now, because when I move to them...
No, they might react to some of the things I was saying. I think it's fair that they go around, please.
Paul Grave, I am coordinating this. I suggest you go ahead.
Benjamin, I appreciate your coordination, but it's important that you be fair. Allow them to go around as you have. Because went round and they came to me. They have the last bit, I don't have the last.
Okay. So if time doesn't suffice and I'm unable to come back to you, then you know that you dug yourself into this. Martin Kpebu, please go ahead. Very briefly, sir. Final comments. Hello, Martin. Yes.
Yes. So the point is this. Remember at the beginning, I told you that I was using the outcome basis overall, the state of corruption, because we are looking at keeping our resources, protecting the public purse. That is the indicators I chose to use, and the economy, what the Ghanaian is feeling now. So it's not within Progress right to choose for me what indicator I will use. Each case determines what indicators you use. When the ordinary Ghanaian is suffering, can't afford 3 square meals, over 10% of our population are below the poverty line. As a result of COVID, this economic downturn, we got about 850,000 again of our fellow Ghanaians falling below the poverty line, right, etc. In such a case, why would I come and sit down and be doing some soft analysis that don't take me anywhere? So I'm looking at the outcomes in terms of the packet of the Ghanaian. And that's the same thing Dr. Ayamga has done. And also the corruption, because, Mr. Akufo, the point we are making is that money we keep losing to corruption is money that could have bettered the welfare of the Ghanaian. So we have no business sitting down to do what impact. Bottom line, has it kept corruption? Bottom line, does it put food on the table? Bottom line, does it improve our pockets? Remember, even Baumia, that he's lauding so much, says that at the end of the day, right, there's no better economic policy than what you feel in your pockets. Yeah, Baumia, I'm paraphrasing. There's a statement like that Baumia himself says that at the end of the day, there's no better policy than what you feel in your pocket. So at this time, we can't come and sit and do puerile arguments, puerile analysis that don't bring food to the table. How can you sit down and encourage impunity, encourage corruption by lauding these ministers? Oh, come on.
All right, Mr. Kpebu, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for your stance that you've adopted. Let me come to Dr. Ayamga briefly as well. What are your parting shots to us?
Yeah, Ben, I think that Bojidanko has been very unfair to us, trying to question our background. I think that Martin is a respected lawyer. I am a scholar of international review. You should check our track record. From here, I'm going to teach a class of PhD Economic Development Policy. And I'm going to teach them that economic development is growth plus change. And that change has to talk of institutional change, talk about cultural change, and talk about change in well-being. So when I was assessing the ministers, I was assessing them based on what they are supposed to do, their core responsibility, the outcome we are going to look at is that we wanted to see growth and we wanted to see positive institutional change and positive well-being from Ghanaians. We look at all these things, we don't see it. Our growth has been abysmal. And to the point that even after restructuring debt, the IMF had to write that we are still in debt distress. That means that the debt to GDP ratio that Dr. Mohamed Bawumia is quoting that it stands at 6% is actually a benign fundamental of the economy, because it is supposed to facilitate your access to credit. With that still, nobody will lend to us. That is how hopeless the Ghanaian economy has become. And I don't think that it's always fair to want to crowd your credentials and your academic achievements before you make a simple contribution to a TV or radio discussion. It just shows that you are empty. And I think that next time you want to do that, just go on to your...
I think though, to say that someone is empty, yes, I do agree that he may have impugned your credibility as professionals in a way, but to also call him empty is not the best positioning, is it? If you are minded to do so, I would humbly ask that you retract that.
I only want to say that anybody who is drafting and cleaning his credentials rather than concentrating on what he's supposed to say probably hasn't got anything inside him.
Okay, so that's better. I just want you to retract your wording that he's empty.
I do if that's how I came across. But I was just saying that it's not fair for him to go on that trajectory. We were using methodology. Likert scale is things we see to undergraduate students. It's not a robust measure of anything. Yes, mentioning Likert scale and saying that it is an advanced tool for assessing anything. No. That is what we use. We even teach farmers and rural assistants.
Okay, all right.
Appreciate more robust analysis. So let's stop here and then let's say that we are dealing with a government that has tanked badly based on what it's supposed to do.
Right. Dr. Ayamga, we have to go. We have to go. Thank you very much. Paul Grave, you have the last word.
Academic tolerance is important, and I think that Dr. Ayamga has gone off the board because academic tolerance is important.
Can you focus on the matters and let's
I will focus on the matter. He has a PhD. I'm also graduating with my PhD as well in business leadership. So I think that academic tolerance is important. We can agree and disagree, but he shouldn't go on those trajectories. I think that the final point for me to state is that the President Akufo-Addo and the government of the day, which is the government of the New Patriotic Party, has ministers that have outperformed than any other minister in this republic. And it's important that we set a record straight. The policies that we have implemented are policies that are novel. They are policies that will stand the test of time. They are policies that will continue to be implemented by the Ghanaian people and by the Ghanaian civil service, even after the government of President Akufo-Addo. And I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. So we had joining the conversation Paul Grave Dankwa. He is government's spokesperson on governance and security. We also had Dr. Michael Ayamga. He's a development economist at the University for Development Studies. And we also had joining the conversation Martin Kpebu, a lawyer. We'd continue on this trajectory as we take these apart bit by bit in coming days as well. But for now, let's go back to that issue in respect of the owner of the Cozy Hills Hotel in Jrapa. There are further developments that we can report. We'll be getting the scoop on that after the break.